Well, it's been another great week, hadn't it? I'm Marty, and I'd like to thank you for joining us here again at Warehouse and Operations as a Career. This week, let's spend a few minutes on controlling expenses. I had a conversation last week with a VP of Ops about a facility that had over 1,000 short on truck cases the previous week. That's a huge error ratio number and creates a very real expense to the company. Not to mention the disservice to their accounts. I tell you what, we'll get into all that in a moment. Let's start out with how we handle wasted expense when it's our own. I'm certain we've all, probably on a daily basis, talked or commented to our kids about leaving the lights on in an empty room or leaving the AC running way too cool when no one's home. Or one of my personal favorites, how about running the bath water for like 15 minutes before they're ready to get in it? All that can really be a drain, an actual waste of our hard-earned money. By managing those expenses or that waste, we're able to have more and do more. The same holds true in our work lives. Our companies can have more, maybe newer equipment or supplies, and share or afford more. These monies we as associates don't help manage could end up in better wages or incentives for our positions. About 2 weeks ago, I was speaking with a building maintenance supervisor, and I've known him for, 12, 14 years. Hadn't seen him in like 4 years now, though, and he's now working in a new industry. I'd known him from the distribution arena, and I'd asked him how he was liking his new job. One of the first things that he mentioned was how he didn't miss all the pallet jacks and forklift maintenance that he used to have to deal with. His biggest complaint was always the shrink wrap and cardboard being ran over by the equipment and all the load wheels that he would have to replace and the cost that it incurred for his department each month. We can all probably realize those wheels aren't cheap. Those bearings that we burn up each month not only cost a pretty penny, but think how much time that our equipment's down while they're being repaired. Oh, and speaking of cardboard and shrink wrap, these days a lot of companies recycle them. I'm sure we could all pitch in and save a few more bucks by saving as much as we can and getting it, at the proper staging area. One of my old pet peeves was the waste of things like tape and rolls of labels. How many partially used rolls of strapping tape or rolls of labels that get changed out too early because we didn't want to run out during our batch, so we just put in a new fresh roll. Of course, our one roll doesn't hurt anything, but multiply that by 60 of us and maybe 6 days a week, and we could have saved the cost of a whole box of labels. I know it's really hard. We have a task to perform, thinking about expenses and saving or not wasting that money. But I'm sure we can all agree it'd be a win-win if we could do a little bit better job at it. So let's get back to the shorts not on trucks. The facility I spoke to earlier typically ships around 400,000 cases a week. With over 1,000 shorts or not on trucks, that'd be an error ratio of 1 in 400. That's one case out of every 400 that didn't get delivered to the customer. Let's think about that cost. There's an expense to get it ordered again, send a selector out to get it again, get it loaded and then driven back out to the count. And, if we had to recover every one of those, that's 1,000 times. I know that's an exaggeration, but really now, wow. A typical error ratio that I work with is at a minimum of around, 1 in 3,000. That's a pretty good one. And I know accounts that are hitting 1 in 20,000. Short on truck and misships are really a huge expense, and we can't forget the impact to the customer. When we take the family out for a nice dinner and the kids want, let's say spaghetti, but a selector mispulled stewed okra, that's in the can for that spaghetti, well, that's not going to be a good thing for us. Okay, so how can those expenses really happen? What causes a short on truck and how can we prevent it? And a mispull, how do we grab the wrong product? If you can answer those questions and eliminate them from our industry, you could be a wealthy individual. Every corporation would pay just short of a king's ransom for that information. Take shorts. We're selecting our batch and we pull up to an empty slot. The inventory may be off, so the machines went ahead and sold that case and we just don't have it. If we don't turn that label in as empty, where it can be removed from the invoice, bam, it becomes a truck short. Its quantity is still going to be on the invoice, yet the driver does not have it on his trailer and the customer can't sell it. Another scenario could be our forklift driver hasn't yet replenished the empty slot, so when we get there, it's empty. Again, if we're busy and fail to get that label turned in, bam, again, it's short. So much has to happen when we're dealing with an exception or something happens to take us out of our normal pace or process, and it's then really hard to get it done. But we need to. I think we'll all agree there. And of course, I'm sure there's that one peer, it may even be one of us, that just isn't carrying at that particular moment and thinks, heck, I'm not going to mess with all this. And bam, bam, it becomes the truck short again. Human nature just kind of takes over. We need to fight against it, and we'll be better employees if we do, but I'm sure it happens. And a misship. I've always struggled with a misship. Our label or pick ticket will give us the description, the item or SKU number or SUPC number, the pack quantity, color or size, etc. And we'll be directed to a slot, and we have the opportunity to verify all that. Yet the misship is a real thing, happens every shift, and costs our companies and customers every day. They happen. I've made more than my share over the years. Again, if we could solve this problem, we wouldn't have to work for a living for the rest of our lives. Errors are costly in every profession and really every industry. I guess we as associates can help by realizing those costs and helping where we can. Maybe paying a little more attention whenever we can. And again, it's hard. We have production numbers to hit. We're making our money. If we can improve with these two areas, I'm certain we could see more things like incentives. Maybe that's an ideal you could bring to your management team. If you could present them with a way to measure our improvements, they very well may just share those savings through an incentive or bonus program. When I was selecting, if our names weren't on the short or misship sheet each evening, we'd get a $5 petty cash slip. Back then, that was quite an incentive. I'd come in every night, check that sheet, and go count the inventory myself. Talk to the driver and the loader. I was always pretty persistent that I hadn't erred. Sometimes I found it or proved my innocence, and sometimes I just had to accept it. There's really no perfect system or WMS or warehouse maintenance system that can eliminate all errors, yet anyway, but I'm sure we'll all agree we could probably try just a little harder. Oh, and I almost forgot about damages. That's another expense that we can help attack. I'm sure we all see that staging area where we place damages at the end of shift. It just kind of piles up. Again, it's just that we're working. Maybe we take a corner too tight and graze the upright, or, our stacking wasn't exactly right. I was probably the world's worst stacker anyway. And if we've stacked something a bit loose and have a tower stack fall over and damage a couple of cases, bam. Again, there's the expense we could have avoided. And let's not get into the cost of the rack or building damages. Those overhead doors aren't cheap either. I was thinking a few minutes ago when we were talking about running over shrink wrap and cardboard. I wanted to point out the safety aspect of it even. If you've never had a set of bearings lock up on you when you're in motion, be thankful for it. I hate to admit it, but once the load wheels were so wrapped up in plastic, it locked up and nearly threw me off my machine. And I've seen the same thing happen to a forklift a couple of times. Not a safe situation at all. And things like that are incidences too. Could even be near misses and could count as a safety incident. We may expose ourselves to retraining or be hit with a couple of safety points. I know we will if there's ever any rack damage or one of those overhead doors are involved. Well, a bit of preaching today, but I'm sure we all understand the opportunities. If you have any ideas or could share what your facility does to combat shorts and errors or damages, please email us. host@warehouseandoperationsasacareer.com so we can share them with our group. Talk about getting noticed by your management team. If you can help reduce those types of expenses, you'll get more than just a handshake from them, I guarantee it. And please join in with our discussions on Facebook and Twitter, where you can find us using that little @ WHSEANDOPS on both of those. And we'd love it if you would like our Warehouse Equipment Operators group on Facebook as well. We hope you stop by again next week. And until then, let's all gather up that cardboard and shrink wrap. Maybe pick up those pieces of pallets on the floor and be safe on our equipment.